if you're going to throw the ball 600 and what'd you say, 70, I don't know what it is, 672 times, say?
Yep.
And you're not going to be a top 15 quarterback, then just like goodbye forever. Go bench press and hurt your tailbone and leave the rest of us alone.
You're listening to Let's Talk Fantasy Football, where men of fantasy genius have realized, hey guys, we don't need real football skills to dominate on the fantasy field. Yeah. So slap on your pads and grab your helmet. Shit's about to get real.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Fantasy Football. I am your host for the night, Matt Rogers, and with me is my personal favorite co-podcast member, Vinny Gonzalez. Don't tell anyone, Vinny.
My secret, Matt. Good to be here, dude. What's going on?
Not much. So just before we get started here, I want to give a quick shout out to ViewPick, our sponsor, the revolutionary app that allows you to play fantasy football live while watching the game on TV. Predict the plays, the result of the play, and literally play fantasy football. You can sign up for the beta now by going to letstalkfantasyfootball.com/viewpick. That's VUPIQ. So a quick outline of what me and Vinny are going to do tonight. We're going to go through half of the AFC North, right, Vinny? I think we got your own Cincinnati Bengals coming up and the Baltimore Ravens. And then later on in the week, we will be releasing part 2 of our AFC North podcast with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns on what to expect with some of those players that are fantasy relevant, because I am sure that there are more fantasy football relevant dudes on some of those teams than the other. Browns, probably.
Browns.
Yeah, that'll be a little quicker than the rest. But so we're going to be doing that. Vinny's really pumped on the Bengals. Before we get going on some news of the podcast, just want to say that the Let's Talk Fantasy Football app on Android and iOS are now live and sweet. To download them, go to letstalkfantasyfootball.com/Apple or letstalkfantasyfootball.com/Android. We're really pumped about that, so go check it out, guys. Let's get to some news, Vinny. Not really an incredibly newsworthy week as far as very substantial things. The lack of news is probably the headline with no Ezekiel Elliott news yet. Before the weekend started, they said that they were wrapping up their investigation, didn't want to make an announcement over the weekend. So I was very eagerly waiting for some Monday morning Zeke news or Tuesday morning Zeke news and Wednesday morning Zeke news, but still nothing. So it's way too early to care, but my mocking self really wants to know what the hell is going to happen with that. You got anything on that, Vinny? I mean,
No, I'm just more and more nervous because, I don't know, it's been so active lately, and now that it's like, middle of the off season, like having no news about Zeke is strange to me. So I just want this to be over, figured out, and then we can, correct it in mocks possibly before, the season's ready to start.
Yeah. I think it was 2 days ago I got like an alert that said his name in the glance real quick, and it was just like, Jerry Jones is pissed about this. And I was like, that is nothing. Help me out. So we're still waiting on that. We'll try and get you that info as soon as it is released. Some other news that we got going on, some fantasy relevant dudes added to the preseason PUP list. I see we got Jordan Reed and Teddy Bridgewater here. Vinny, you know what the details on those injuries are?
No, I think the Jordan Reed one was precautionary because he's always fucking hurt. So I think they're going to hold him out of some stuff as long as they can. So they put him on the PUP list. Teddy, I think I kind of expected, with that gruesome injury he had almost 2 years ago, I think now, maybe a year and a half. So that's not a surprise either.
True. And keep in mind also the preseason PUP list is not like the regular season PUP list where I think you need to stay on for like 6 weeks, is it? No matter what in the regular season?
Yeah, if you throw him on that, I think it's 6 or 8.
Yeah, and in preseason, like training camp timeline, you can make daily adjustments to that. So it's pretty much just an excuse to give these guys rest and probably not have the media like bother them about it a bunch, even though they probably still do. But whatever. Another injury that's not really necessarily a big deal is Jordan Matthews is dealing with a knee injury. Oh, wait. I see you wrote here, and it is considered to be more serious than tendinitis, which was the initial report on the injury. Kind of concerning, Vinny. Anything you got on this?
Yeah, I mean, last podcast I was pretty excited about Jordan Matthews going super late in drafts. So this kind of sucks, I guess, from a Flyer standpoint. But other than that, yeah, like you said, not that big a deal for other people.
Yeah, that's a good point. In this early stages of fantasy preseason, there's a lot of guys whose prices are extremely high, and it's upsetting because there's guys that you may like, which we'll get to some of on this podcast, actually. But very seldom right now, I feel like, are there great value picks that have a lot of upside, like a Jordan Matthews that we talked about on our NFC podcast, which NFC East podcast, which you should check out. So I kind of agree with you there, Vinny, that that just sucks, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's it. Torrey Smith, maybe. No, don't do that. Edit that out. We'll edit that out. Some other minor news. We'll get to it with the Ravens, but apparently Joe Flacco is going to miss a week of training camp because he hurt himself lifting weights, which is kind of funny. I don't know. I guess the Ravens, I want to make some sort of like Ravens, it's his back, so like Ravens Super Bowl back joke, and I'm just not clever enough to do it right now.
Yeah, I don't have anything off the cuff on that, but definitely love to make fun of Joe Flacco anytime.
Right, exactly. It's like a desperate attempt to just be like, take humor out of his pain, but no success here. I'll tweet it later. Some other minor news: the Broncos came out and said that Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch will borderline like split first team reps. We assume there's going to be a little bit of a quarterback battle, as there should be. I mean, what rarely are those bad for young quarterbacks with good receivers. So, I wouldn't say it really affects the Broncos in fantasy that, who would win that battle, but just interesting to keep track of.
Yeah, I think it keeps all like the skill players like Sanders and Thomas kind of on that level field that they've been, even if like Simeon was starting the season as compared to Lynch. So it's no big deal.
Right. And then last thing we have here is Deshaun Watson seems to be impressing the Houston Texans in like 2 days? Is that like in the past 2 days?
I mean, it's not that hard to be impressed after like a whole season of Brock Osweiler. So
right.
At least he's trending in the right direction, I guess.
That's true. It's like, hey, this guy may not be the shittiest quarterback we've ever had. And he is only competing with Tom Savage, who I'm pretty sure has like started 3 playoff games for the Texans like in the past years. I don't know if that's accurate, but it feels that way. So yeah, that's good. I mean, Deshaun Watson is definitely exciting, not necessarily for drafting or preseason necessarily, but it would be very nice if he sort of emerged as a quality quarterback early on. It would probably make the Texans a whole lot better, and they have some frustrating guys from last year that could surely benefit from that.
Absolutely.
So that's all I got for news, Vinny. You got anything else?
That's it, man. Let's get into the Bengals.
Into the Bengals. So let's start it with the boring part first that I'll ask you. Andy Dalton, right? I'm usually like, from my research for this podcast, I realized that I'm definitely an overly stubborn Andy Dalton hater, which I'll talk to you about in a second. But what do you look for? What are you looking for from Dalton, fantasy wise, going into this year?
Well, like the main concern, I think, for Andy Dalton mainly, and I think everybody before we even start talking about the Bengals, is the offensive line that they just got decimated in the offseason. They lose Andrew Whitworth to the Rams. Kevin Zeitler goes to the Browns. 2 gigantic losses. They're not going to have a good offensive line. So that scares me for the potential. Like, this is the most talented offense I think Andy Dalton's ever had to work with. And it's a shame that they did not keep, even Andrew Whitworth. Like, come on, man. Throw that guy a bone. He's been there forever. And Zeitler's just great, and now he went to a rival team. They couldn't even get one of those guys to stay, which is kind of like what the Bengals do for no reason. But it just sucks because there's so much potential. Like, if Andy Dalton had the line that he had last year with Whitworth and Zeitler still there, I would love Andy Dalton so much. But now you got to wonder what is going to happen if there's just pressure on him constantly. So I'm a little bit worried. But if you're playing the quarterback waiting game on Dalton, I like where he's going. It's not pricey. And he has that high upside with, they have the new offense with John Ross, healthy Tyler Eifert, Tyler Boyd getting another year under his belt, and, of course, A.J. Green. So there's a lot to love with the weapons. It's just, do you trust Andy Dalton, which I know, like you, a lot of people have a problem doing that. But, I'd rather much have him than an Eli Manning or something like that going later.
So that's not a bad point. First off, Zeitler, did he go to the Browns? Because I know they
did.
Like,
yes, yeah, they gave him 5 years, $50 million.
Yeah, I know they paid a lot for
big money
line upgrade, but we'll talk about that more later. I don't hate what you're saying about Dalton, and it does suck for him that he can't get all these pieces on the field at the same time. You know, and even just take away the O-line issue, like you said, how rare is it that he has even just AJ Green and Tyler Eifert on the field at the same time, let alone all these good draft picks that we'll talk about in a second. So my issue with Dalton is this. First off, here I'll give the side against my hate first, is that I did not realize this, but Dalton has never finished below QB 18 in fantasy through a season, which surprised me. And he's also, I'm pretty positive, mixed in like a top 5 year in that span. Correct?
Yeah, that was 2015 when the Bengals were just disgusting. Dalton had his best year by far, and that was when Tyler Eifert was healthy for 10 games, which is the most he's ever had, and he had 13 touchdowns. AJ Green, of course, very healthy that season too. When his casual over 1,000-yard season, I think he had 7 touchdowns that year. It was just the best we've seen Dalton, but that was when they also had Sanu and Marvin Jones. So like the weapons need to be there, and it just sucks that they're not constantly around him because he's very capable.
Right. I mean, I think I prefer him as an NFL quarterback to a fantasy quarterback. And again, to that point, here's why, is that I know that AJ Green and Tyler Eifert were, obviously missed a lot of games. I think like Green played 10 and Eifert played 8. I think it's 8. Regardless, it was that middle, missed half the season. But Dalton had 0 games with 3 touchdowns last year and only had 4 games where he threw 2. And his touchdowns have kind of been trending down. I mean, 18 touchdowns all year is kind of upsetting. Even with, certainly the AJ Green and Eifert injuries are an issue. But when you make a comparison to Eli Manning, so I'll put Dalton. I put Dalton in the top end streaming. I don't think he should get drafted in one quarterback leagues, and he's definitely that top week streamer. But I would rather take Eli Manning just because Eli Manning has that 40.5 touchdown capability, where Andy Dalton hasn't done that in a long time, if ever, of recent memory. So it's like I would rather take a guy where there's something to be said about Dalton too, where he's semi-consistent, but I would rather take a guy in that range if I'm going to stream that can get me 35 points,
Yeah, okay. That's completely acceptable. My counter to that would be the Giants don't have the best offensive line either if we're comparing them directly. So that's kind of where I'm like at, and I don't know. Of course, I just like Andy Dalton more, so it's kind of a homer thing for me too.
Right. No, I agree with you. I just I feel like depending on your team too, because I assume that Andy Dalton's going to be probably owned in every league come week 4 when the bye weeks start, and certainly
so.
of strategies we've advocated in the past of matchup play, because he actually plays pretty well against bad defenses, which is all you can ask from a middle of the road fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, just beat the shit out of the bad teams on like your quarterback's bye week, and you'll love Andy Dalton.
Right, just like let me pick you up against the Browns when Tom Brady is on the bye, and just like you'll get me 16 points at the very, very least. So that's definitely a good thing. So my hate on Dalton is a little bit less, but I definitely put him his ADP right now. He's not really getting drafted as much, but it's quarterback 17, which I think is pretty correct.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, like we mentioned, he's in that tier certainly, like around not getting drafted basically in one when you play one quarterback in your league. So it's right there. There's a risk reward thing when you're playing him as a streamer. But if you're going into the season with Andy Dalton as your only QB on your roster, if you're playing the waiting game on QB, you can't be too happy, but it could work out like 2015.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, he's the same as Matthew Stafford to me, who's going before him.
Yeah,
so it's all interchangeable there. It's definitely not the worst thing if you're the last guy to take a quarterback in your draft and you got Dalton. So whatever. I said it once, but he's only had one season with 30 touchdowns, and that's upsetting for a season long.
I agree.
So we talked about AJ Green. He's the best player on the Bengals, pretty much. So let's just roll right back into him. He's going as the 10th pick in the first round, 5th wide receiver. Where do you rank AJ Green among wide receivers, Vinny?
That was the hype train leaving, man.
Yeah, that was AJ Green's train pulling out.
Hold on. Let me go through this because I'm like basically what it comes down to in fantasy drafts for me is do you want Mike Evans or do you want AJ Green? And I think where I lie on that plane is AJ Green.
Okay. All right. So what, like, I mean, why though is my, like, if you had to compare the two, is it I know it's not homer preference because you're not that stupid with your
Right.
rankings.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't have the blinders on that much, but it's just
Right.
he's constantly like he's the focal point of the Bengals offense like every single week, and they want to get him the ball. He averages like six to eight targets minimum a game. So you're going to get that constant production. He's like a wide receiver one, and he's going relatively late in the first round. So I think it's like a steal at that point, because a lot of the guys are focused on like that top 7 that we keep talking about, or that top 8. We keep stretching it like day by day. I think AJ Green is technically on the fringe of those awesome players, but if you get AJ Green and you're at like 9 or 10, that is absolutely amazing. And he's your wide receiver 1 for the entire season. Last year, he was on pace to finish as wide receiver 4. He has that ability to finish in the top 5 no matter what. Constantly goes over 1,000 yards. Always in that realm of like 4 to 8 touchdowns. And it just makes sense to me that you would want to stabilize your team, especially that late in the first round. And then you can wrap around and possibly take one of those guys you can depend on at running back, like one of the last guys, possibly like a Jay Ajayi or risk it on Todd Gurley. Like you start getting into that, like if you want to play that game. So I just think it's a nice rock that you can build your team around, and he's going way later than he should be, I think.
Oh, okay. See, I don't disagree with that. I'm a Mike Evans. So you put him wide receiver 4, the answer to the question.
Yes, I would. Yeah.
Okay. I prefer Mike Evans, but I'll put AJ Green 5, and it's just splitting hairs because originally I was thinking injury history because he does have a slight injury history. But then I looked at the wide receivers going around him, and I was like, Mike Evans, slightly injured. Jordy Nelson, don't even have to say anything. And then Michael Thomas, sophomore, coming off a rookie year. So it's like, right. So when I was looking for someone to slide ahead of him or a reason to drop him down, I didn't find one. So one thing that I like about AJ Green is that every year that he's played 16 games, even though it's only happened once in the last 3 years, he's had double-digit touchdowns. So you're right. When he's on the field, the production is certainly there. Another thing that I like is that 2015 year, it seemed like when Tyler Eifert started to break out, where Dalton would shy away from Green, and it was like he had some 4-target games and some 5, because Dalton was maybe like, oh my God, you're getting double teamed and I don't know what to do right now, and have Tyler Eifert. But last year when he was on the field, he had 8+ targets in every single game, and that was only like 2 times that it was single digits. I think the rest was like ranging from 10 to I think one time even like 15 or something like that. So the fact that they reverted back to just being like, yo, just chuck it up to him anyway is certainly good.
I mean, I think so, but we can talk about Ed's question that he has where he asked us, should we expect AJ Green to get the same amount of targets he got last year? And like you were saying, it was 8 and above for every game, which I don't think will happen this year because you have more capable mouths to feed, especially if Tyler Eifert's coming back at full health. So it is a little bit worrisome, but like I said before, he's still always the focal point. But I just don't know if that Dalton will be directly looking at Green, because if he has to spread it around to like Ross, Tyler Boyd being a little better. The reason he got that many targets last year is because you have like fucking Brandon LaFell, Tyler Boyd is a rookie, and then Eifert is gone. That's all you have. You have just AJ Green. So that's why he was averaging 8 targets a game.
True, but really all that's differed from that situation now is just Eifert and a worse O-line.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so, all right. So
you're still going to have LaFell and insert young receiver here, which we'll talk about in a minute. I just want to finish on AJ Green. Is that, well, to your point that more targets have come in, and again, I'm just bringing this up as where he's going in wide receivers is like Odell Beckham, more guys coming in. Antonio Brown, more mouths to feed now. Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, more mouths to feed. Jordy Nelson, that's just an issue in itself. But so I don't think it should be too much of a factor that like they drafted John Ross and Tyler Eifert may be healthy,
Yeah, like with we'll talk about him soon, but if we want to jump into John Ross while we're on,
go for it. Well, before we do this, let's direct it this way because I wanted to ask you this question.
Sure. In
drafts, which is the second Bengals wide receiver that you think has the most fantasy? I won't say potential because there's some unknown in the John Ross, but who would you rather own of the 3 of Brandon LaFell, John Ross, Tyler Boyd?
It's a little tough because John Ross is still recovering from shoulder surgery. So I think at the moment I would lean Tyler Boyd because I think he's going to be that steady number 2. And I think less attention will be on Tyler Boyd. So they can move him. They can rotate him slot opposite A.J. Green. Him and John Ross can go back and forth. And I think he's going to be out there in no man's land sometimes because they're going to want to the defense is going to want to focus on John Ross, A.J. Green, Tyler Eifert, and then Tyler Boyd is like kind of in his natural spot in the slot or on the outside, just kind of not getting a lot of attention. So I think he'll have plenty of opportunities to make people miss, make some plays. So I think it's the most interesting of the 3 at the time. Obviously, the appeal of like the new flashy thing in town is John Ross, and he's the only one with an ADP at the moment. But I think Tyler Boyd is kind of under the radar there.
Okay, so he's going at first pick in the 12th round at wide receiver 54 for some context there.
John Ross.
Yes, John Ross. Sorry. So, and you said what was his injury again? I'm sorry.
He had a shoulder thing in college, and he had surgery for it. I think right after the draft or before the draft. Right. So he's still just not ready for training camp, but should be fine for this season. So he
also had some knee injuries in the past, right? Did I read that correctly somewhere?
That is also correct.
Okay. So he's potentially injury prone, but he's definitely got the most upside of those 3. I mean, If you're telling me which one of these guys has the best chance to be a top 30 wide receiver, I would pick John Ross just because of the unknown. But I would actually, and again, this is not a good opinion, but I would choose Brandon LaFell.
Oh,
just
no.
because, no, and yell at me in a second. But here's what I'll say.
Sure.
He had 6 touchdowns last year. 4 were while A.J. Green was playing. So I just always remembered the Bengals having that other outside guy having some success. You know what I mean? Like whether it was Marvin Jones or whoever runs the outside opposite, like Dalton looks that way. And again, this was without Eifert and all that shit. But my thought process is John Ross I'd rather draft probably, or Tyler Boyd. But like say for instance, if it's week 3 and like all this crazy shit happens and I need to pick a wide receiver to score a touchdown and get 50 yards and a touchdown for me, I would probably choose Brandon LaFell. And so much remains to be seen, but that's how I'm looking at it.
No, it's a valid point, and I think in my own head I'm ignoring the production that he had last year because he led the team in receiving touchdowns like you alluded to before, which is just, I think, very odd, and that will not happen again. So I'm not – and he's older, and I think they brought in a whole bunch of young guys to kind of move him out. So I don't think that you're going to be able to even plug him in on some bye weeks. I mean, you're saying you don't want to draft him like at all, even like as your last pick, right? Yeah.
I would draft John Ross and Tyler Boyd before.
Gotcha.
But like week 2, if someone said like you need 10 points from someone, I would probably pick up Brandon LaFell over the other 2 dudes.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, that's completely fair. That is completely fair.
Okay. So you rank them Tyler Boyd, John Ross, Brandon LaFell.
Yes, at this moment in time.
Okay, and your opinion definitely is better than mine on this. Like Brandon LaFell, that's a cool
You've always kind of liked Brandon LaFell, and
shut your mouth. I was going to say
he's won you some weeks. He's burned you a little bit.
He's won me nothing. I just know that. Oh God, here comes the Brandon LaFell train.
Did it crash?
Yeah, it definitely crashed. But sirens will follow. This is Los Angeles, so I'm sure there's sirens all the time. But I actually remember a year where I took with Panthers, Brandon LaFell in like the 5th round as my wide receiver 2, and that was I think that was a 4-12 year, which was very fun. And I'm sure that you were really great to me during that time. So moving on. Really moving on from the wide receiver core, because there's not much preseason value there anyway, other than AJ Green. But let's get into this crazy running back situation that is interesting as shit. And I feel like a lot of people that haven't been obsessing over fantasy football like over the past month, like you and me have, like maybe need to be walked through this because it's very interesting. So first, I'll ask you the obvious one: Joe Mixon, right? Joe Mixon was drafted out of Oklahoma, and he had 2,900 total yards and 26 touchdowns last year, right? That is just absurd.
Yeah. Am I right saying that? He's very, very, very good.
So they still have Jeremy Hill and Gio Bernard, and he's going in the 12th pick of the 3rd round as the 15th running back, which means, Vinny, the way some teams may draft, that he may be a running back 1 on some fantasy teams. I got no direct questions, but just say some shit.
It sucks because like the whole, like when he got drafted, I was like, that is awesome, but also like not cool because all the stuff that surrounds him as a pick, which is obviously his outside stuff. So I couldn't even be excited as a Bengals fan, like outwardly in public or anything like that.
Oh, Bengals and their fans don't care about any of that shit, and I think that's pretty obvious.
But you can't just walk around. Like, I can't get a Joe Mixon jersey now. I have to wait till he has a good season and everybody forgets what he did.
Right. What he did is terrible. Bengals fans still
agreed. Yes.
Fans care about specifically what he did, but I mean troubled players. I was gonna be like, they don't give a shit.
Yes, but he was the most talented running back in the draft. I think that might be a little controversial. Or do you agree there? I mean, you could throw in Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey, but I think he was the most talented in the draft.
Yeah, well, well-rounded for sure.
Absolutely. He's the one that could definitely take over a starting gig, no problem, 3 down back, hands down.
Oh, he would have been a first rounder if not for all that bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. He can pass block, catch, of course, run. He's great. And it's crazy because I was watching him. I'm like trying not to get hyped on Joe Mixon, and he literally looks like Le'Veon Bell. And that was his pro day comparison too. So it's not just me; it's like other experts comparing him to him, like the running style, just possibly what he could bring. Obviously, high praise, but that is yet to be seen on the National Football scale. But where he's going in fantasy right now, I'm so sorry to like myself and everybody else that loves Joe Mixon, but it is way too high. I can't justify it. And when you like I told you several times over the offseason, like he'll get the job. He'll get the starting running back job eventually because Jeremy Hill has been slipping ever since his rookie year. But Jeremy Hill, if he loses that job, he becomes even scarier to Joe Mixon's value because he just becomes goal line dude, which he is the best at. He is a very good running back inside the 20s. He always gets somewhere between like 8 touchdowns a year. Somehow he'll get it done. And I think the Bengals are slowly realizing, like, we can't just give this guy 20 carries. He creates nothing for himself. But Joe Mixon is that guy that can. And it's just the upside of taking him at that point in the draft, there almost isn't any unless he wins the job before the season starts, to me.
Right.
Like, I can't hold on to him for that long because I think he'll overtake the job like week 5 or something like that officially, because the Bengals are very tough to hand off a job to somebody, especially when there's capable guys like Hill and Gio coming back. Like also Gio's in the mix too. At like he's probably going to miss possibly the 3 to 4 games, so he's like another monkey wrench somewhere at the quarter mark of the season. So there will be 3 of these guys on the field at some point, and it's just going to get really messy.
Yeah, so to your point, this motorcycle gang is just all over. I'm so sorry. So when I was reading, I've been shocked about. I feel like on the podcast I know the least about Joe Mixon, and when I'm seeing his ADP, I'm just like, jeez, like no, I can't do this. And I've been looking for a reason to hate him, and then everything you just said was echoed in everything that I read. Was just like, okay, he's a power runner. All right, he can catch passes, and then our co-podcaster Walsh is always a dude that's like, well, if you're a rookie running back and you can't pass block or pass protect, you're not going to see the field and you're worthless. So I was like, he's probably bad at that. And I looked it up.
No, he's awesome.
Surprisingly great at pass protection. I was just like, shit. Like this just totally makes sense that he's going here. What I'll say is that the running backs going around him. So if I'm looking at ADPs, I see we got at running back 12, Leonard Fournette.
Nope.
For me. Lamar Miller, okay. Isaiah Crowell, okay. Then Joe Mixon, Ty Montgomery, Christian McCaffrey at that ADP. Oh, my God. Carlos Hyde, Spencer Ware, Doug Martin, whatever. So the way I'm looking at it is it depends on how my draft is gone. I do not want to take Joe Mixon in the 3rd round unless I have a very good running back already. If I take 2 wide receivers and then risk it on Joe Mixon, I don't love that because while the talent is there, as you said, I also agree that he won't be a 3-down back like they think he will be for a couple weeks at least. They want to see how it goes because, to your point, that's definitely the right way to go about it. Jeremy Hill will be your week 1 starter. I'm pretty confident about that. But it's weird that Jeremy Hill also, like you said, has been trending downward lately. Is he like past his prime at 23 years old? That's like weird and shitty. right? I mean, he's 20.
Yeah, he started with all the promise in the world, and then just has been like he cannot, like I said before, he cannot create for himself. When the Bengals O-line was good, he was awesome because they blocked well for him. When it's gone to shit, and it's even worse now. Imagine like Jeremy Hill is just going to be falling backwards for -1 yard. And if he gets 20 carries a game, it's not going to – he'll get his average like 45 yards. He was bad.
He was getting relatively fed last year in some games, and he only had 200-yard rushing games.
And they were against the Browns.
Both of them were against the Browns. So
yeah, it's
whatever. But my only hesitation on that price for Joe Mixon is just like you said. I'm not saying that he may not be far and away the best running back on the team, and maybe week 10 he's getting 20 touches and is one of these dudes. But in the beginning, why would Marvin Lewis not give them each 8 to 9 touches per game just to see how it unfolds, right? And if I'm drafting Joe Mixon in the 3rd round, that means that he is going in my lineup week 1.
Yep, most likely.
So do I doubt that he'll be like a top 10 running back? I mean, yeah, sure, I can doubt it. It's definitely possible, but maybe not at first, and that's a little concerning.
So much stuff has to happen or go correctly for him to be like a feasible week in, week out since day one starter for your fantasy team. I mean, like the entire season, like so many things have to go right. He has to either win the job. There's an unfortunate injury to like Hill or something like that. But to go further off Hill and what his situation is, he's in his last year of his contract. So I think they're going to give him the fair shot to start. And I think if it slips away, though, they won't hesitate to give Mixon, more time. But again, he's still there. He still exists. He's a great goal line back. And I think people are kind of forgetting that.
Right. And it's certainly so Jeremy Hill is going early in the 12th round at running back 51. I'd probably put him a little bit higher, but not much. The only thing that sucks about this conundrum here with Joe Mixon is you want to think against it, and then you look at all the work that Jeremy Hill got last year, just didn't do anything. Like running backs had 77 receptions last year. Jeremy Hill alone had 78 targets. They rushed 400 times as a team, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure. Yep, 400 times the team. So that's just, if he starts to get the lion's share of the work, is just, there's so much potential there. It's like, that could be running back 3 stuff, but whatever. So to bank off Jeremy Hill, make this quick, would you suggest that he may be a decent late round snag for a guy that has a Doug Martin, or if Ezekiel Elliott makes time and is a dude where you could be like, okay, my first 2 running backs are running back A and then Doug Martin, and then I got like CJ Anderson that I don't love necessarily. Do you think Jeremy Hill is worth like a 10th round pick to be like, yo, I could actually start this dude week 1 because I'd be like, I think he'll get a decent workload, like you said, and just like maybe just try and milk him for the little opportunity that he has.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in the situations where the guy might be out like Zeke or definitely out like Doug Martin for the first couple of weeks. So you plug in Jeremy Hill, if he's starting running back week 1, he might hang on to that job very loosely, but he'll at least get some carries, the goal line work like he always gets. And then when that time passes and your starters come back and they start entering bye weeks and stuff like that, Jeremy Hill could still be your plug and play flex in desperation because he'll still get goal line work. And to be honest, he's been a touchdown dependent running back that we've drafted like he wasn't for the last 2 or 3 years. So to his credit, he can still, provide fantasy points just through a much lesser extent. And at this point where he's getting drafted, it's completely justified for what he'll be able to do.
So say you own Joe Mixon and you want to handcuff him. Who's your handcuff?
Oof. I mean, you got to take Hill.
Okay. In PPR, I wonder, just because they throw to the running back so much, and Jeremy Hill has looked so bad at points that I'm wondering if there's more breakout potential for Gio. But it's a hard question. Who's your Mixon handcuff? Yeah, it's your Hill, right?
Yeah, out of like the Bengals backfield, it's definitely Hill.
Okay,
it sucks, but it is.
Do you recommend handcuffing Mixon?
I do not. I think if you take Mixon, you ride or die on Mixon, and you just kind of deal with it.
Okay. I don't hate that either because you could totally run into a situation where it's like if Mixon goes down, that it's just a split between.
Yeah, then it's Hill getting 20 carries, 45 yards, maybe a touchdown.
Yeah, and then Gio Bernard like sometimes catching 6 passes.
Exactly.
And good luck with that. But all right, you got anything else in the Bengals running back situation here other than Gio Bernard's coming off a torn ACL? He's had. I feel bad for him. He's had like over 1,000 total yards each year that he's been around.
Yeah, he definitely grinds it out. They extended him, so he's still going to be with the team for a couple more years. I think 3 more. And he's definitely a great player. But for fantasy, it hasn't exactly panned out. He's been like that flex. I need some points, Gio. Please just give me points in the flex this week. But,
yeah. Gio will always hold a soft spot in my heart because he actually won me a fantasy league 2 years ago.
That's nice.
It was. I had him and actually Eifert. I had DeMarco in his last. Maybe it was 3 years ago. I forget. It was DeMarco in his last Cowboys year, and then Gio Bernard in his best year with Tyler Eifert, who we will talk about now. And Tyler Eifert is going 3rd pick of the 7th round, tight end 6. Are you cool with that, dude?
It's not for me, but I get why people are doing it, and I kind of feel like the tight end tier. I think the tight end going before him is Jimmy Graham, and that's probably the last guy that I would be okay with going early for. And then Eifert he carries that risk that he always does, that he won't play a full season. He might not even play 5 games. So it's very concerning. I personally would not take him there. I think it's too much.
Yeah, I mean, he's missed 26 games in the last 3 years. I would not take him there. I would, if he goes like in the 7th, I wouldn't even put him tight end 6. If he was going like, 9th or 10th round, that's where I'm viewing tight end roulette, and like I'm cool with taking that risk there. But the 7th round is just way too pricey with all the flex options there. And another thing I'll say that if you take someone like Tyler Eifert in the 7th, like 6th, 7th, or 8th round, please have not drafted a quarterback until round like 11. Please, like don't go like Breeze in the 4th and then Eifert in the 7th.
You have to choose. If you want to go early on quarterback or tight end, you have to choose because you cannot do both.
Right. Unless it's like a Gronk Rodgers combination. See Ed Morlock in our fantasy or our mock draft podcast. He did that, but unless it's like a combo like that, it's just too ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So Bengals. You got anything else in the Bengals, Vinny, other than they're going to win the Super Bowl this year?
I think so. Like I do every year.
Yeah.
We missed one question from.
Sorry, I've been missing the questions. Go back.
No, it's cool. I'll read it. I guess I'll direct it to you since you've been firing me with questions. This comes from Corbett11. Where do you see Joe Mixon standing among rushing yards? What is it? Standing? Oh, I don't know. What do you think Joe Mixon's rushing yards are going to be at the end of the season?
Oof. I'm like the worst person to ask because I just said I'm so confused about Joe Mixon. But I think that it wouldn't be if he gets the job and starts getting the work that everyone's drafting him for and that we think. I wouldn't see that it's ridiculous for him to hit close to 1,000 rushing yards. But I think something to pay attention to more or want to know about more would be his total yards because he can do a lot in the receiving. And while I think there's a situation where if his playing time is good, if he only gets 850 yards on the ground, I wouldn't be shocked if he gets 600 through the air or something like that. So I think more his total, if everything goes according to plan, I would put my over-under at like 1,250. What do you think about that?
Kind of high.
Yeah? Total, no, I'm saying total, not rushing. Sorry, total.
No, yes. Okay, yeah. Because I was thinking kind of like you, like somewhere in the realm of 800 between 900 yards for rushing, and then God knows what receiving, what he can work out. I was thinking
I was kind of like 350-ish there or something like that to 400 maybe. Like I wouldn't be shocked if he caught like 60 balls, No,
yeah, that's a good point, especially with Gio out for a while.
Right. So that's what I think. If you put it there, I don't know, 1,200, 1,250 maybe.
Yeah, very fair. I'm just trying to keep myself humble with expectations on Mixon. I really am. He's so good and so talented. I'm just trying to keep myself like very close to the floor. Like
See, I could say that because I'm just like, hey, I'm afraid of Joe Mixon in every single draft. So like 1,300 yards, bro, go for it. But yeah, I don't know. I won't own much of him this year just because I'm so scared. But all right, well, you want to move on from the Bengals? We'll take a break for a second and hit up the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and get a word from our sponsors.
This year, dominate your friends with free play-by-play fantasy football from ViewPick. ViewPick is the first play-to-play fantasy football game where you crush your friends from the comfort of your own couch. For the first time in fantasy football, you must think like the players and coaches on the field as you predict the outcome of every play. Visit viewpick.com, VUPIQ.com, and sign up now for an invitation to beta test.
And we are back. Vinny just got all sweaty about the Bengals and is now patting himself dry with a pair of Don's boxers. Vinny, that is strange, and I don't know where you got them, but it says the DON all over them, and it's very, very odd. So let's just move on off that transition to the Baltimore Ravens. Trying to forget that image. And sorry, I did that to you. Let's get right into them. We talked about Joe Flacco's injury that is relatively irrelevant. What do you think about Joe Flacco fantasy-wise this year? I mean, he's going at quarterback 24. He's not going to be drafted. But I think more about Flacco is what he can do for that team. Yeah,
I'm very off Flacco in real life and fantasy, but he doesn't really like. He's never. I found this out today. He's never passed for 4,000 yards ever. I found that. What's up?
Did he do it last year?
He did not.
Okay.
I was just amazed. I don't know. I just found I was shocked. I didn't really know, but yeah, I'm completely off Flacco. I mean, I wouldn't even want to stream him really, unless he's going against like the worst passing defense in the league at the time, and my quarterback's on a bye. Maybe.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, you gotta be pretty desperate for Flacco. He set career highs in everything last year except for touchdowns. So he threw the ball more than anyone in the NFL and only threw 20 touchdowns. Lame.
672 times and did not go over 4,000 yards.
That is correct. I'm sorry to correct you, Vinny, because I feel terrible, but last year was a 4,300 mark. He did pass the 4,000.
No. Oh, my stats.
I'm sorry. I was going to wait till after, but it has, yeah.
My beautiful stats.
Yeah. But no, he did throw yes, but to Vinny's point though, it did not translate to any sort of success whatsoever. He was still like quarterback 21. I think he was like close to bottom of the league in 6.4 yards per attempt. So yeah, this just sucks. I mean, they're not going to pass the ball as much this year too. So it's like if you're going to throw the ball 600 and what'd you say 70? I don't know what it is, 672 times. Say.
Yep.
And you're not going to be a top 15 quarterback, then just like goodbye forever. You're done. Go bench press and hurt your tailbone and leave the rest of us alone. So we'll get away from Joe Flacco and talk about how, they're probably going to not pass the ball as much and go into, to me, the most intriguing Raven going into the year. So, before I talk about Danny Woodhead, let's say Kenneth Dixon had a meniscus injury earlier in the week or like 2 weeks ago. They thought it may be minor. And Jim Harbaugh is now. John Harbaugh came out today and said that he is, or yesterday, one of these days, I don't know. He's going to miss the rest of the year. So that makes this backfield extremely more intriguing. For Danny Woodhead, he's going fifth pick in the 7th round, Vinny, as the 23rd running back in PPR formats. 33 years old, coming off an ACL tear. What are you thinking about Danny Woodhead? Because this price is interesting.
It's definitely very, very high, I think. It's like, especially like I said, coming off the injury, they do not want to pass that much, especially what they've seen it does to Flacco. He does not play well. So, and I think with the Kenneth Dixon news, with him going down, Danny Woodhead's price is going to skyrocket even more. Like he might go up like close to the end of the 4th round, maybe even halfway through by the time we get to draft season, which I think is crazy because this doesn't really affect his value. At least it shouldn't, because I feel like his role was already slated out for him. He was the passing back. This is what Danny Woodhead does. He's going to have a very low rushing total, but get a ton of weird red zone work and then a bunch of passing work. So I didn't feel like the Dixon injury really directly related to a Danny Woodhead bump in fantasy. I think it bumps Terrence West up way more than Woodhead, and I think everyone's focusing way too much on Woodhead now, and it's just going to get more and more pricey because you can't risk that early of a pick on an offense that's not going to want to pass too much, which is his specialty. And just coming off that ACL, it does not seem really appetizing at all.
Right. I mean, he's one of the oldest running backs in the league now. The only reason I agree with you that it definitely helps Terrence West exponentially more, that Kenneth Dixon news. But I think it does help Woodhead a little bit just because the crowded backfield was something I was balking at when trying to evaluate him. So, like we said, game script last year with the Ravens playing down essentially constantly led to a lot more passing attempts. And one thing that I like is Flacco still completed 118 passes to running backs last year. Granted, that was from, the factors and variables we just discussed, but I don't really expect the Ravens to be playing ahead that much more this year. I mean, I still don't think they're a great team. They upgraded their O-line and defense pretty much exclusively in the draft. Mm-hmm. So they want to control the ball more. I think they went out and got Danny Woodhead. I think this may be one of those cases where they're like, we're fine with running you into the ground to let our other players sort of develop a little bit, because Terrence West is going to eat up the bulk of the carries. You're right. But I wouldn't be surprised if, Danny Woodhead starts to average like 8 touches a game. And especially when they're down, Terrence West, he increased his pass catching totals last year, but Danny Woodhead's the guy for that. And I seriously, while I don't think his price is necessarily worth it, I would not be surprised if there are 4 to 5 games where Danny Woodhead catches 7 passes.
Yeah, I mean, to your point before, I could poke holes in one of the things you said with Joe Flacco passing to the running back a ton. That was mainly to Kyle Juszczyk, who is gone. So
okay,
that was a big thing for me too when I was looking at this, because he's technically not a running back; he's a fullback, and no one was fucking covering him at all. So he was out in the flat all the time, and Joe Flacco was like, "Are you kidding me? I got to get to that 4,000 yards that I've never hit before." And he's fucking hitting him in the flat, and then he's just loose. He's just like a giant truck. So at that point, I'm not really putting my faith in the numbers of how much volume went to the running back last year.
Yeah, no, you're right. I just think that it's more of a case of where, while the Steelers were probably up 28 and they're just like, it's the fourth quarter, should we guard Kyle Juszczyk? Like, nah, man, go ahead. But I think while it won't come close to reaching that total, I think a slight Flacco tendency is a dump off. And, they brought him in for a reason. I agree with you, though, that he's definitely overvalued a little bit. But, I'm cool with him and this is PPR only. I could be cool with him as my running back 3, depending on the construction of my team. I wouldn't love it, but in PPR, it could be okay.
That's a situation where I think I would be okay. I think I'd be okay as well. Third running back, Danny Woodhead, not too bad.
Right, but then to your point, at the same time, so he's going in the 7th round.
Fifth round.
Oh shit, 5th round, 7th pick in the 5th round. Oh, I did not know that. I was looking at this back.
It's high, man.
That is really bad.
Very high.
Jamison Crowder is going immediately after him. Like, I'll take that all day over Danny Woodhead. Stephon Diggs, like, wide receiver value there is way better. So
agreed.
You're right. So moving on from that, let's get into Terrence West, because to your point, he is definitely the best beneficiary of this Kenneth Dixon unfortunate news. Last year alone, he got 57% of the carries, and they're expected to run the ball more. So he's going running back 47, 10th pick in the 10th round. That should drastically climb, I'll think. Where are you valuing him?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time. I think it'll pretty much catch up to where Kenneth Dixon was and kind of float around somewhere in the 9th, which I think is okay, because he was only going around later. So I think it'll go up to there. I don't know if anyone's going to overhype it or underhype it or anything like that. I think it'll be right where it needs to be. And it's a nice bailout pick for like stocking up on running backs late, I think.
Yeah, you're right. And also, I mean, to your point, yeah, it may not climb higher than the 9th round, but I wouldn't be shocked if he got like 175 carries this year. And how many running backs are you finding that
late? Yeah,
potentially in like even the 8th and 9th round, which he'll probably climb to. So I think he's a good value pick there. I mean, there's guys like Kareem Hunt and, Latavius Murray going there, which aren't as clear cut of a situation. I think a Terrence West workload is slightly guaranteed. What he'll do with it, I don't know, but
right, yeah, and he'll get the shot, of course. I don't know how short that leash is because they do have a bunch of like those weird backs that are just kind of there. Like they have Taliaferro, Buck Allen's always there. They just signed Bobby Rainey, so I don't know how short the leash is on Terrence West, but. They do have a crowded ass bench of guys. So
yeah, that definitely sucks. I did not know about the Bobby Rainey signing. I know.
Yeah, I mean, how scared are you of Bobby Rainey though? Like it's not.
No. But it's just like what I'm more scared about is why do you think you needed to sign Bobby Rainey?
See, that's what's weird about the Ravens. They always have a fuckload of running backs for no reason.
Right. Yeah. Whatever. All right. You've kind of turned me against all that.
Sorry, he did to Terrence West, like a pro for him. He did go over 1,000 yards total and have 5 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown on a pretty not good Ravens team last year. So there is that, and like we said, he's going pretty late. Not that bad to get someone like that in the 9th round.
All right, that is cool. So let's go to something that I already hate, and it's the Ravens wide receiving core.
Oh no, I kind of like it.
Ooh, okay, all right. So Mike Wallace we'll start with. Well, no, you know what? Let's start with Mike Wallace. He's going the 11th because he's the longer one there. He's going 11th round, 6th pick, right?
Correct.
Last year had a very weird year where he was their number 2 to Steve Smith, who they lost, obviously, to retirement or whatever the hell Steve Smith does. What are you thinking about Mike Wallace as far as where he's going?
I just feel weird about it. Like you said, I was going to ask you more questions about him since you owned him llast year, right?
I traded for him, and again, you're just bringing up a bunch of shit that I'm not trying to talk about. That I'm like, oh no one.
Oh right, you traded him. Then he started sucking because he was. Good.
Oh yeah, he had like those first few weeks where I'll just quote my own notes that I have right here. So he finished as wide receiver 23. But this was a weird – I'm trying to just sugarcoat this. He only had 1 touchdown past week 2, which is what I traded him for. He finished as wide receiver 23, which is crazy. And the reason why is because he had those huge weighted weeks. But for the rest of the season, had a very un-Mike Wallace-like year where it did not help me out, but overall was good, where he was predictable and consistent without scoring touchdowns, which is like, whoa, that is just not Mike Wallace's career at all. And I'm not saying that this was, 12 to 15 points per week, but you could relatively, for the most part, guarantee for him to have between 7 and 11, standard to half point PPR points, which is not great, but, serviceable in certain bye week situations. Not for me. I did very terribly, but I don't really see any of the situation changing other than I think that has to be an anomaly, that he was consistently, high single digits without scoring touchdowns.
Yeah, I was going to say he had a very high floor, and he was pretty dependable, like week to week, like you just said. And Matt, I'm sorry, I have to read this question to you because it's funny now that I remembered that you traded for him when he sucked. My question that I wrote was, Matt, you owned Mike Wallace last year. How cool was it to finally see a flyer pick land and to get use out of him surprisingly on a steady basis?
So to answer that, I mean, other than the stats that I kind of just quoted, I'll just say that flyer pick did land for not me. And then I actually, if you want to know something funny, he didn't catch a touchdown for weeks, and then I traded him away to somebody else like right before the deadline, and then he like had a 100-yard game, and then after that caught a touchdown. So I got like a bunch of 8-point Mike Wallace weeks, which were like kind of cool, but just none of the good stuff. So it felt very gassy. I'll say. Gassy is the best way I could describe it. Especially because I've always hated Mike Wallace. It was just like, oh, this is the year. But it was only the 3rd time in his career that he caught 1,000 yards or caught 70 balls, and the 3rd time he got 1,000 yards. So it's weird that that's how it went down. But
yeah, he's kind of a weird wide receiver, but he's going pretty late. So if you're panicking and trying to stock up on guys, it's not the worst ad.
Yeah, it's not the worst ad, but I also like, higher upside dudes when you're going like your fifth and sixth wide receiver, but it's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get to the dude that you obviously like, Jeremy Maclin. Just talk about Jeremy Maclin first.
So I completely like them going out and getting him. They lose Steve Smith, so they need that solid number one guy for Joe Flacco, I think, because Jeremy Maclin is not a fast guy. He just runs routes really well, and I think Joe Flacco had some of his most efficient years with Anquan Boldin. I pretty much compare them on the same field. So I think you can see I don't think expecting Maclin to have over 1,000 yards is crazy. So him going relatively late, I think he's kind of going around like Decker and stuff like that. So the way I'm looking at him is like you're getting 1,000-yard receiver, unquestionable. I think he's the number one wide receiver on the team. And I just think that's what the Ravens need at this point. Like you got Mike Wallace. I guess he's still fast. I mean, he's getting up there in age, but to give you like he'll give you a steady floor and the upside of a touchdown, I think, week to week. So going kind of like at the turn of the eighth is at the turn of the seventh, into the eighth is pretty cool to me. So I'm loving some Maclin.
All right, your arguments made me a little less steadfast on my hate. It's just I looked last year, and granted it was the Alex Smith Chiefs, but he played 12 games last year. It was like wide receiver 76.
Dude, he had like no groin though. He was playing on that thing like for those 10 games, and then finally said, "I can't do this, dudes."
Right, but does a 30-year-old wide receiver just buy another groin? I don't know. You're right. I'm nitpicking here, but it's like when I look at the last year's results, I'm just like Tyler Boyd, Seth Roberts, Cordarrelle Patterson, like all finished above you. I'm just like, and he played 12 games. He played 12 games. So I mean, that's also the Chiefs, and shit's weird. You look on the other side of that coin. Through 100 career games in the regular season, he's got 46 touchdowns. So that's pretty sweet. A lot of that was with the Eagles, obviously, since the Chiefs just don't throw touchdowns to wide receivers. But when you say it's pretty likely that he gets 1,000 yards, I also think that it's just as likely that he gets less than 700. Whether it be to injury or a bunch of other things.
Okay. All right. I was gonna say how so, but that's a fair point. If you're anticipating, like he's kind of injury prone, I guess at this point with the nagging injuries that he's had, so it is fair to assume that he would miss some time, and that would result in not getting 1,000 yards.
Right, and also you can't bank on that. But to me, it's just there's a lot of factors there that I don't see the upside being as good. Like I totally think that even if Jeremy Maclin finishes a top 30 guy, that there's going to be weeks where people are like, do I fucking start him against the Steelers this week? Or like, he went 3 straight games of 40 yards, 3 catches. Like, what do I do? And I just think that there'll be those ups and downs, I think, because he's definitely injured. He's getting a little older, new team, Joe Flacco, and they want to make a point of running the ball more. So I just don't know if it's going to be there on a consistent basis to be my wide receiver 3. That's just me.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, fair points. I think as a wide receiver 3, I think that's fine because he can virtually get that touchdown for you any week. So I like that upside there.
Yeah, you're right. I just totally look at it and be like, I just never want to play him. If I drafted him as my wide receiver 3, I'm gonna be like week 1. I'm like, do I do this? And I just don't want to go through with that. But whatever.
I gotcha.
All right, so. Tight end for Ravens. Do you really have anything here? I don't. Dennis Pitta, retire in peace.
Yep.
Do you have any more reader questions here? Let me see what we say. Why someone said from Hands Down Sports, why is newly acquired wide receiver Jeremy Maclin being drafted in the late rounds like 12 to 15? That's not my data.
To I guess correct that he's going 8th pick in the 7th round. So if the last time you mock drafted or whatever, it has corrected itself and it is now, I think, pretty much exactly where he should be. No higher, no lower.
Yeah. Hands Down Sports, I do not like Maclin. If he's there in the 10th or the 9th, you jump on that shit hard.
Absolutely.
But okay, so we don't have any more reader questions here. You got anything else on the Bengals or the Ravens, Vinny?
No, I think we got it all, man.
All right, so we will give our weekly reminder of download our apps, people. Review us on iTunes. That's the best way to listen to our podcast. And start mocking. We say it every week. Start mocking. So for Vinny Gonzalez and Let's Talk Fantasy Football, I am Matt Rogers. You guys have a pleasant week, and see you next time.
This has been Let's Talk Fantasy Football. Thanks for listening.